How's it going, everybody? This is Ask Me Anything About Politics. So, if you got any questions about politics, let me know in the chat, and I'll do my best to give you a great answer. I know that oh no, oh yeah, I forgot to plug in the fucking microphone. No, that's a bummer. Okie dokie. Alrighty. All right, now we got sound. Fantastic. Welcome to Ask Me Anything About Politics. If you got any questions about politics, let me know in the chat, and I'll do my best to give you a great answer. What's up, Party Source? Good to see you again. So yeah, any questions about politics, just let me know in the chat, everybody. I know the politics can be really intimidating when you're first trying to learn about it. It can be like trying to learn a new language. So I like to make myself available. Mr. Lane, good to see you, Mr. Lane. Thank you for being here. So yeah, if anybody's got any questions about politics, just let me know in the chat. I'll do my best to give you a great answer. I know politics can be really intimidating when you're first trying to learn about it, so this is the place where you can ask all of those questions. All right, party servers, let me get that quote that's been in your head today. So yeah, there's no roasting here. There's no debating. There's no judgments. I don't care who you voted for. This is not one of those shows where I bring people on and I yell at them for having different politics than me. I don't care who you voted for. I don't care if you didn't vote. If you're further to the left than me, if you're further to the right than me, all questions are welcome here on the live stream. So maybe you're like a right wing person, you've always wanted to know, why are left wing people like this? Why do you believe this? Why do you vote like this? Like, this is the place where you can ask this question. I'm just a fella, I'm just a regular ass dude, and I'm a Democrat, and maybe you don't want to just sit there and be like, oh, all Democrats fucking suck. So maybe I'll ask this guy what his fucking deal is. All right, gotcha. Nothing but love for you too. Matt D34 says, how do you feel about LA? So the Trump administration has been illegally detaining and deporting people without due process, without providing any evidence whatsoever. They have not been giving the people that they're deporting or detaining any chance to consult legal counsel or even explain what their options are. The people are upset about this, and so they have been registering their complaints in the way that we know how, which is through peaceful protests. And if there are people, there are individuals who are not doing peaceful protests, if they are hurting people or doing property damage, then those people go to jail. That's the way that works. The issue that we're having, though, is that this becomes a cycle of escalation, where just because somebody who we don't know throws a rock through a window or pushes an ICE agent or whatever, that means that all of the protesters are a bunch of violent thugs. And then the escalation starts, where the Trump administration brings in the National Guard, and then the National Guard waits for somebody else to do something. And because protests are made up of thousands of people who do not know each other, and we don't know who those people are, it's not like a coordinated effort by like one person who's calling the shots. Any one of those individuals can be guilty of escalating irrationally or illegally, and then they use that as justification to fire over bullets at the entire crowd and shit like that. So I always come down on the side of the protesters, and I believe that it is the job of law enforcement to de-escalate as opposed to escalate. But that's not what the Trump administration is interested in doing. What they're interested in doing is escalating so that they can grab more power, they can create more chaos, they can militarize our police force and declare martial law, and continue to continue their extrajudicial deportations and detain more people for no fucking reason. So yeah, I would just encourage anybody who has preconceived notions about what's going on out here, whether there's like massive riots or anything like that, to just recognize that you're probably not getting 100% accurate information. Let's see here. Oh, Inverted Mystic. Okay, I see you over there. I'm your right wing friend, but honestly, I think I barely have any right wing positions anymore at all. Inverted Mystic. Yeah, I have a question, though, a really good one that most people are afraid to talk about. All right, yeah, put it there. Were you Inverted Mystic on TikTok or on YouTube? Where did I used to see you? But yeah, go ahead and ask your question, my man. Johnny Buckle said, would a centrist third party that is fiscally conservative and socially center-leaning liberal work? My guess is that probably not. So conservative economic policies is just one of many policies that they have that is bad. The deficit and the debt skyrocket more under Republican presidents than Democratic ones. The economy does better under Democratic presidents than Republican ones. Trickle-down economics is a failure, and yet that is their only economic policy. So why? So what is the value there of having conservative politics? If you're looking for something to unite the country, a blended party is not the thing. What we have here is a country that wants, half of them want hot dogs and half of them want pizzas. And so the solution there is not to give them a hot dog that is filled with pizza sauce or a hot dog that's wrapped in a pizza, instead of a bun. The solution there is to get America on board with what we want the future policies of this country to look like, and then we can start discussing who is best to implement that. Because the issue right now is that we have a bunch of billionaires convincing people that the goal of American government is not what the goal of American government should be or is. And that's the issue. And, similarly, the billionaires are also convincing people that what's going on in the world is not actually what's going on in the world, with misinformation and propaganda and stuff like that. Let's see here. Mantis Fang says there was a live feed that shows ICE and Homeland Security starting conflicts. Okay. Zvia says they're only conservative when a Democrat is in the White House. All right. Johnny Buckles says don't agree 100%, but respect your view. Thank you, Johnny Buckles. Let's see here. Eagles Prod says Kamala supporter. Yes, and proud. Let's see here. Posse Communist Act, says Richard Hammer. I'm not a communist. Salazar Lopez says, why is America the only country not allowed to have borders? America is allowed to have borders, and they have borders, so I don't really know what you're talking about, Salazar. Mao did nothing wrong, says, thoughts on socialism. Socialism is one of many ways that we can operate as a society, in addition to capitalism, in addition to communism. Whether you like it or not, there is socialism and communism in America already in the form of employee-owned companies and social services like, paying for, using our tax dollars to pay for paved roads and fires departments and, public education and shit like that. That's socialism and communism right there. It really is just a balancing act between how much capitalism you have in society versus how much communism and how much socialism. And personally, I think that we could use a little bit more communism and socialism in this country. We're a little too capitalism strong at the moment. Massimo Pellegrino says, Republican or Democrat? Democrats. Richard Hammer says, no, they're crossing the lines, sending in troops. Not really sure what you mean by that. Manu says, what do you think about mass deportation? It's kind of dumb. It's stupid to set a target for how many people you want to deport without actually knowing who these people are out there. ICE has these quotas they're trying to fill. They said they were only going to be deporting the worst of the worst and hardened criminals. Most of the people they're deporting, zero criminal record, have done nothing wrong. A lot of the people they're deporting are legal residents who are, quote unquote, doing it the right way. And they're just like, nah, we've been told that we need to get rid of this many number of brown people. So that's what we're doing. Bond Canine Experience says, is it an overreaction to have a day's plan in case societal breakdown in the next 14 days? Yeah, I don't think that society's breaking down in the next 14 days. That's, what do you call it? Unlikely, I think. Ooh, I think Reb just called me Adam Levine. I'm not mad at that, at being called a doppelganger for that handsome fella. All right, going over to Inverted Mystic, aka Mysteline, over on TikTok. The United Nations are doing a Save the Oceans event as Greta Thunberg, a person they hosted multiple times at their events who got captured by Israel, someone they claim is their friend, instead of saving her. They talk about her lives, passions. Without her, all they want to do is virtue signal. Whenever we need the UN, they are just nowhere to be found. Yugoslavia, Iraq, Afghanistan, Ukraine, Israel. How is this okay, and why do people think me pressuring them is pointless? So you're seeing a whole bunch of things there. So I'm going to try my best to come at this as generally as possible. But if something more specific that you want to get into, just let me know. The UN has been kind of targeted by groups that don't want there to be a United Nations. They've thrown wrenches in the gears in order to make it a more feckless and unimportant body. But the goal of the UN is still sound. We still should have a UN. We still should have all these nations talking to each other and coordinating with each other. Unfortunately, part of the goal of, Republican politicians has been to send people to the UN who want to dismantle the UN, like John Bolton, for example. The current administration is hostile to the idea of the United Nations, as are other authoritarian governments like Russia and shit like that. So yeah, like every organization is open to constructive criticism. I think that it is worthwhile to think about like why these institutions are doing poorly and vote against the people who are causing that to happen. Let's see here. Zivia says Trump said he would never cut Medicare. That was a lie. That is accurate. User a bunch of numbers says, why do we still believe in the debt? It's a scam to justify paying taxes. It's not a scam. Paying taxes is how you pay for things like roads and bridges and public schools and things like that. Cal says, why is it Republicans? Why is it always Republicans in charge, always deport and the rest of American citizens because they can? Cal, I'm not sure exactly what you're saying, but Democrats do deportations as well. Rocky Horse says, a lot of people have done wrong things. That is accurate. I'm not really sure the point that you're trying to make there. They barely are brave enough to speak up against injustice anymore. Yeah, institutions themselves are just made up of the people that occupy them. So, if we want the UN to have more of a backbone as far as standing up for universal human rights, then we need to send people to the UN who stand up for universal human rights, and we need to incentivize it. I think that that's not my area of expertise. I'm not really sure how the mechanisms of the UN work exactly, but I'm sure that we all have some very valid criticisms of the UN, but the project remains extremely valuable. Hannah says, "Are you interested in party collaboration?" Theoretically, yes, but there's an issue there because the Republican Party has taken party collaboration and used it as a cudgel. Barack Obama came into office in 2008 and said that he was going to reach across the aisle and he was going to be the president for red and blue America. And the Republicans heard that and they said, oh, so if we just say no to everything that he does, then we will make him fail in that project. And so they became the obstructionist party, and they were dedicated not to doing their fucking jobs, not to making life better for American citizens, but their entire goal was just to make sure that Barack Obama did not get re-elected again. And so, that is not a party that I want to be in coalition with. A party that relies on lying and cheating and massive dark money contributions from the billionaire class to win elections, I'll work with them on things if there are things that we can come to agreement on. But, I think that the most valuable thing that we can do is vote the Republican Party out of existence. Buster said, did Elon rig Pennsylvania? So I have been pretty skeptical about claims of election rigging, but there are some stories coming out right now that are kind of raising my eyebrows. And if I were somebody who lived in Pennsylvania or a swing state or whatever, I would have some very serious questions for the people who represent me, my governor, my mayor, my secretary of state, my senator, my House representatives, about election integrity and about who is monkeying around with vote counting machines, because there is some substantive reporting coming out right now then that a somewhat sketchy agency was meddling with election counting machines before the election in many, many counties. And there is an interesting lawsuit happening in Bucklin County right now. Bucklin County, something like that. I forget the name of it exactly. So yeah, I think that it is unlikely that this will cause, like Kamala Harris to be president, but it is really important that we know if our, election systems have been compromised. So yeah, I would just, call your representatives and tell them. Rockland, thank you, RK. I appreciate that. Houston Walton says, why is America Israel's puppet? I don't really care for the framing of that question, man. It kind of sounds like an anti-Semitic dog whistle. But I would just say that, Israel is a very powerful country that has a lot of influence. The Republican Party seems to want Israel to be ascendant in that area because it will bring about the rapture. And Democrats do not want to upset Jewish people living here in America who might view any criticism of Israel as being anti-Semitic. I'm a Jewish person, but I don't really give a shit about that. I think we should criticize Israel and we should not be sending them money and weapons. MTS says, I live in Pennsylvania and we don't claim Philadelphia or Pittsburgh. Well, I mean, I would say that those are your only two good cities, my man. Houston Walton says that's not anti-Semitic. It is an anti-Semitic dog whistle, though. Zoe says, is there anything you wish Democrats did differently prime election time? I mean, I'm a progressive. I prefer more aggressively progressive candidates, younger candidates. I'm much more of an AOC Bernie Sanders than I am a Pelosi Schumer type of Democrat. And so I think that there is a really strong case to be made that selling progressive ideals to America would win elections, regardless of if you were in a more centrist purple area. But I'm sure that there are pollsters out there who would tell me that that is political suicide. But yeah, I think that the number one thing that we have to do if we want to get Democrats elected is talk to people in real life, because the social media algorithms are influenced by billionaires who are spreading misinformation and propaganda in order to convince people to either vote for Republicans or not vote at all. Donnie says, is there light shining for Buttigieg? I mean, Buttigieg is an extremely talented political communicator. I think he's great. I think that the people who vote in Democratic primaries are probably going to worry whether America is too homophobic to elect an openly gay man to be president. But I think that if we do the work and make the case, there's definitely a chance that he could win if he was the candidate. Are you still watching me? Says, what do you think about the LA immigration riots? They are 99% peaceful protests, and I don't think that we are able to judge protests by the worst actors in the protests. There's no singular person who is directing people to be violent or break windows or anything like that. It is just a bunch of people who are doing sit-ins and registering their complaints and trying to do malicious compliance and shit like that. And that is the move. And I think that it is incumbent on the state and federal government to not escalate things by sending in like the National Guard, for example, because bad faith actors are going to have bad faith. So if somebody throws a rock, then go get that one person. But that does not mean that you get to start shooting rubber bullets indiscriminately into the crowd. Alrighty, let's see here. I told Kamala that if she cared about the LA riots, she should do a rally in LA right now. I was super nice about it, but I noticed people ripped Frost Maxwell for making a statement, and he is just a congressman from Florida, but Kamala is a presidential candidate, former vice president. Also, that is her state. See what I'm saying? I'm not knocking her at all, but people need her. Yeah, I get that, but she just lost one of the most consequential political elections in our lifetimes, and she's allowed to do whatever she wants to do. It is, if somebody wants to be a leader politically, then that is their choice. And if somebody decides that they tried that and they don't want to do that anymore, then that's their move also. Says, you're deafing this. Hope it's your kids next. I'm not really sure what you mean by that. Mike McLaughlin says, if they're so peaceful, why all the trouble? Mike, I would encourage you to get to some other sources, because the protests have been 99% peaceful. You cannot judge the entire protest based on the actions of a few bad faith actors. We don't know who those people are. They could be right-wing agitators who want the protests to become non-peaceful, who want the image of the protests not to be a bunch of union members sitting on a bridge, but to be a bunch of people en masse throwing rocks and burning and setting Waymos on fire, So yeah, I just think that people need to have that philosophy regarding it. Because otherwise, how do we do peaceful protest if a Republican billionaire can pay somebody to go in there wearing a mask, start breaking things, and all of a sudden that whole protest doesn't matter anymore, it just doesn't count anymore. It's not a good protest anymore because somebody broke a window, Zivia says, what do you expect? We have a felon in the White House. Yeah, exactly. Isaiah says, I think by deaf they mean defending. Yeah, probably, but I'm not going to put words in their mouth. They have to type correctly if they want me to answer a question. Let's see here. Fog War Productions says, hey, bro, did you hear Utah circumvented Trump's trade war with Canada? I didn't hear about that, Fog War Productions, but congratulations to you guys. Mike McLaughlin says, how do you know it was a Republican protester? I didn't say it was. I just said hypothetically. If you create a system where one bad faith actor means the entire thing doesn't exist, then anybody who's on the opposite political side of that protest can go in there, do that bad thing, and then all of a sudden the entire protest doesn't cancel. Do you see what I'm getting at here, my man? Let's see here. Hate in the Dream says, any tips for me as a young progressive aiming to run for public office, I'm thinking weekly live stream Q&As. I think that's great. I think that you should be focusing on doing work in person. You need to start recruiting people to work for you. If you're not already working with Indivisible, I think that should be step number one, is reach out to them. If you're under 40 and you're progressive, they will work with you and potentially endorse you. If not, they still have resources that you can use in order to do better in your campaign. Hating the Dream says, what's Indivisible? It is a nonprofit organization that teaches people how to run for office and also endorses progressive candidates who are under 40. Timmy Tim says, isn't it weird that Trump can call in the Guard for LA, yet not for January 6th? Yeah, that is weird. Isn't that interesting? I do think that's weird. We sent our own trade delegation to Canada. We've also been talking to Mexico, UK, and France. Oh, good for you guys. I'm really happy about that. Victor says, are you more Republican or Democrat? I am more Democrats. Zoe says, if Bernie Sanders was the candidate for 2024, Dems would have one question mark? I don't know. That's a hypothetical that doesn't really seem valuable. You know, one of the main criticisms that people had about Biden was how old he was. And Bernie Sanders is also super old, so I'm not really sure the value there. A lot of the country is still scared of words like socialism, and Bernie Sanders is a proud social democrat, and, you know, that could potentially harm him. Bernie Sanders, who I like a lot, he lost 2 primary elections against more centrist candidates. And, you know, yes, the DNC put their finger on the scale there, but the outcomes were pretty, you know, definitive, I would say, numbers-wise, where even if you added together all of the other progressives candidates' votes, you still don't get enough for Bernie Sanders to win either of those primaries. So, yeah, you know, I think that Bernie Sanders is a great public speaker, and you know, he's got bona fides, but you know, can he, you know, rally enough people to sell what he is cooking to the American public? If the right-wing media machine gets behind, you know, demonizing Bernie Sanders as a extreme socialist communist, is that going to be convincing to enough people? You know, like I don't know. I don't think that it is as easy as saying he 100% would have won in any of these elections. VT says the DNC admitted in their lawsuits their primaries are rigged, but that is not accurate. VT, they used the power that they had to try to get the candidates that they wanted to win the primaries, but it was still up to the people to vote for the people for who they wanted to represent them. And Hillary Clinton ran away with it, and Joe Biden ran away with it. And again, I was canvassing for Bernie in both elections, so you know, nobody wants that to not be true more than me. But the fact of the matter is, like, he lost by like millions and millions of votes. Let's see here. Cat Bar says, haha, put their finger on the scale. I mean, they did. Maybe you don't think that's strong enough language, but they did. DJ, more break, please. Says, I don't like ice in my drinks, let it in my city. I'll take it in my drinks so long as it's not in my city. Miss Stalene, I agree with you. We do need more people like AOC, Michelle Wu, Julie Salazar, Zora, Maxwell Frost, and not people like Andrew Cuomo, Brandon Johnson, Eric Adams, and Gavin Newsom. What about you? Which should we vote for in our primaries? I'm a progressive. So I go progressive, I go young, I go diverse. That is how I think that everybody should be voting. Let's see here. John Bradley says, thoughts on the California situation? I mean, if you're referring to the protests, they're mostly peaceful. I do not think that Donald Trump should be escalating the situation by sending in the National Guard. But at Fogger War Productions, people forget why we had to fight the Cold War originally, but people think it's just economics. Yeah, exactly. Vithi says, what do you think if AIPAC's influence over elections? I'm against it. AIPAC is a right-wing organization. They use their money to, you know, get more centrist Democrats to win their primaries, but then they also put their money behind getting Republicans to win elections as opposed to Democrats. Let's see here. Albert Feinstein says, if and when the Dems win the midterms, Trump won't be able to steal American taxpayer money. Sort of, kind of, Albert Feinstein. So it is essential that Democrats win the primaries in 2026. Like, that is not a question. Like, the damage that Trump will be able to do with, you know, both houses of Congress under Republican control is infinitely higher than if Democrats had control of Congress. Now, but that being said, part of the issue with the Trump administration is that they are acting lawlessly and unconstitutionally, and that he is attempting to grow ICE to be his own personal Gestapo. They are operating very Gestapo-like these days. And so we need to also do the work as citizens to put pressure on our elected representatives and strike and protest and boycott and work with mutual aid funds and everything like that, because the Trump administration is not stopping. They are continuing to escalate things. They are going to continue moving us towards a martial law type situation. And getting Democrats in Congress will be a big step in stopping that. But that does not mean that us, the American citizens, have to, we'll be able to take our foot off the gas. We still need to do the work as well. Let's see here. Yin says, will AI make it into the Constitution? Goodness, I hope not. Miss Aline says, I like ICE. I would encourage you then to check out Chris Murphy's speech about ICE that he just gave in a Senate hearing with Kristi Noem. It outlines all of the ways in which ICE is acting illegally, unconstitutionally, and immorally. ATL says, who's going to win the New York mayoral election? I don't know, but I think that what's his name? Zohran Mamadi or something? I think that he should win. Let's see here. I haven't seen ICE 2 after political opposition. I'm not really sure what that question means, BT. Alonza 4K says, what side are you on, Trump or protesters? Protesters. Always protesters and always against Trump. If people are protesting peacefully, then they're fine. You can do whatever you want. I don't care what you're protesting. If you're doing it peacefully, that's the move. But also, Trump is a unique threat to every American and every citizen on the planet. He is a corrupt piece of shit. He is a liar. He has been found legally liable for raping a woman. He's a real piece of shit. So, yeah, always against Trump. RC says there's nothing peaceful about LA. Yeah, there is. It's mostly peaceful. Let's see here. Tino says they're rioting violently, but they're not. Tino, they're not. 99% of the protests are non-violent. And if you're just judging you don't know. You don't know. There's a lot of misinformation about these protests going on out there. So I would just encourage everybody who thinks that these protests are like crazy violent to recognize that you probably don't know what you're talking about. RC says burning cars is peaceful. Well, those people are not, but 99% of them are. Are you doing this on purpose, RC? Like, are you just going to be straw manning the entire time, or are you actually here to engage? Let's see here. Chris Garcia says, what do you think about ICE? They are a rogue agency. They've been a rogue agency for a long time. They are operating unlawfully, illegally, unconstitutionally, and immorally. Tino says, I live in LA, but I guess I'm seeing wrong. You could say whatever you want, Tino. I don't know who the fuck you are. It's not your full name. I don't know who the fuck you are. You're a person on the internet. You could be making shit up. The Lone Snorkeler says, do you have a degree in political science? I do not. Malin Bates says, I'm back. Good to see you again, Malin Bates. Let's see here. I have Kristi Noem's emote. Are you jealous? No, I am not. But please stop using that. I don't like looking at that lady. Sushi Man says, difference between a leftist and a liberal, or should I get a degree in poli-sci? I don't think you need a degree in poli-sci, but if you're interested in it, I say go for it. And as far as like the difference between a leftist and a liberal, like I'm not really sure how that breaks down. I don't really trek with any of these like semantic labels because people will have different definitions of words depending on what side of the political spectrum they are on. So nobody agrees on what it means to be Zionist or anti-Zionist. Nobody agrees on what it means to be a socialist or a communist or a leftist or a liberal. So I just say try to be very specific in the policies that you advocate for and don't, die on the mountain of whatever semantic word choice that you believe is appropriate. Fogmore Production says appeals to authority are spiritually liberal. Let Jared cook. Nivamat says, can Trump be stopped from becoming our dictator? Yes, we have the power to stop him. And in fact, I would say it is incumbent upon us to do the work to stop him. And if anybody watching this is curious what the work is, check out my Discord. I've got a thread posted, pinned to the top there called The Work. And that is how we stop the Trump administration. Malin Bates says, Trump will forever be remembered as the Epstein Island president. I mean, that's how I remember him. Chris Garcia says, what is King's Day? It's no King's Day. There's a protest happening on Saturday this week, and it is to protest the Trump administration attempting to turn our government into a dictatorship. Tino says, abortion, yay or nay? I'm pro-choice, and if you are pro-life, I still believe that you should vote for Democrats because the Republican Party isn't actually stopping abortions from happening. They're just making them more dangerous for women. And I can go into more detail on that if you like. Let's see here. Short says, if California sues Trump over the deployment of the National Guard, do you think they'd win? I'm not sure. The Republican judges in the Supreme Court, they seem to be amenable to certain authoritarian moves that the Trump administration makes. So I could 100% see them siding with Trump in that regard. But yeah, they should 100% vote against him because it is a wildly inappropriate thing for him to do. It is escalating tensions as opposed to calming things down. Let's see here. Jeff Mercer. Thank you, Jeff. I appreciate you being here. The Lone Snorkeler says, is there any right-wing value position, doctrine, or politician you agree with? Not really, and I think that, you know, people who need me to say nice things about Republicans, they're doing this thing that I call centrism for centrism's sake. Like if you got two political candidates, one of them is a regular person, the other one is John Wayne Gacy. Like, I don't think you need to find a nice thing about John Wayne Gacy and his positions, I could list you 1,000 things that the Republican Party has done and is currently doing that are awful, damaging, immoral, unconscionable. That I think it's not like two different political opinions. It's not something soft and workable. It's like you got one party that is like wildly unconstitutional, immoral. The Republican Congress is fucking asleep at the wheel while Trump is renditioning citizens to concentration camps in other countries, and he's accepting billions of dollars from unnamed foreign nationals. Like, that is fucking that's a deal breaker, man. Like a hard deal breaker for voting for any Republican for the fucking foreseeable future, man. So yeah, I tend to fight pretty strongly against that idea that I have to say some nice things about some Republicans. Emiko says, I'm confused on the viewpoint of Republicans when supporting tariffs. I am as well, Emiko. Let's see here. Zoe says, do you think Trump could get impeached? Not with Republicans in Congress, but if Democrats sweep the midterms, then he will most likely get impeached. He probably won't get removed from office because it will be very difficult for Senate Democrats to get 67 seats. But what people mean when they say it will be very difficult for Democrats to get 67 Senate seats is that they don't think people will do the groundwork to get that done. But if people like you and me go out there and talk to people in person and recruit other people to do the work of electing Democratic senators in places where it's currently being held by Republicans, we could 100% get 67 seats in the Senate. It would just be a lot of work. It'd be very difficult. Nododo, good to see you again, says, do you feel that the left would ever embrace anti-Trump conservatives for a coalition? I mean, we have many times in the past. That was what the whole Lincoln Project was about. Snuckles says, the man is not normal. He's out of his freaking mind. I can't even leave my house. I'm scared. I feel you, Snuckles. I really do. It is a really dangerous time to be, living in the world, living in America. Thoughts on ICE, LMAO Lolo says, thoughts on ICE raid, ICE LA raid protests. ICE is acting illegally and immorally. The protests are mostly peaceful. I'm going to come down on the side of the protesters. If there's somebody who's damaging property or like punching ICE agents, then send that person to jail because that is illegal what they're doing. But, peaceful protests, I'm about them, man. That's the move. Miss Aline says, we need more protection for workers. Doesn't matter where they come from or what they look like, whether it be from abusive bosses or tyrannical government. We shouldn't allow this to happen ever. The way ICE went is go people's place of work, and ripping them away from us is unacceptable. Completely agree with you. But when you say, like, it doesn't matter where we get those protections from, where do you think you're going to get those protections from? Like, Republicans are fully in charge right now, and they are telling ICE to do this. They are instructing them. So if you're talking about protecting workers, there's only one political party about that at all. There's only one game in town, man, and that's the Democrats. It's the Rocketeer says, what do you think of the discussion currently going on over the optics of flying a Mexican or Palestinian flag at LA protests versus flying an American flag? It seems like kind of window dressing to me. Like, I'm not really in the business of telling peaceful protesters how to peacefully protest. If you're doing the work, do the work however you like. I think that yelling about protesters about optics, like people were mad about things like Black Lives Matter was a bad slogan, or defund the police was a bad slogan. It's like people are going to do what they do, and they're going to resonate with whatever ideas they resonate with. And I give a lot of leeway to anybody who is protesting peacefully, regardless of if some bad faith actors turn that into a non-peaceful protest. Maitland Bates says, who's the bigger problem, Trump or MAGA? I mean, they're intimate. They're intimately connected. Patriots147 says, why wave a foreign flag if you want to live here? You're trying to, you have a political message, the same way that people on the right will fly, the fucking Dixie flag or whatever, the Confederate flag. And while I do not agree with, the the history of the Confederacy and the things that they have done. If somebody believes in supporting Palestine, they're going to wave that flag at the protest to signal like this is all one work that we're doing here for a free and fair society. Like the exact same motivation behind trying to stop ICE from illegally kidnapping people and sending them to fucking South Sudan or fucking whatever is the exact same impulse within us that thinks that it is wrong that Israel is doing, war crimes against the people of Palestine and illegally kicking people out of their homes and annexing their territory and shit like that. Nivamat says, in your opinion, would it benefit or hurt Trump if he declared martial law? Oh, that's a really good question. I don't know. I mean, I know that that's where he's going. If he could declare martial law today, if he thought it would be productive to do that today, he would. I think he is waiting for the time when it would make the most sense, when the most amount of people would not object to him doing that. That's why he's escalating things by sending the National Guard into Los Angeles, is because he wants an excuse. And, again, it takes exactly zero effort for a bad faith person to walk into a protest and break a window in order to try to escalate things. And so we can't judge the protests based on that alone, because again, we don't know who's doing those things. So yeah, I don't know. It's really scary. And I think that we should all be, activated as individuals and talking to people in real life to make sure that we're all on the same page, that martial law is a no-go, that is a fucking line in the sand that we will all fucking take to the streets, that we're all not going to go to our fucking jobs anymore, and that, that we will enter into X Games mode if Trump declares martial law, that no matter what is going on in this fucking country, he does not get to do that because, he's not, he's not attempting to de-escalate things. He's trying to get to martial law. Let's see here. Thank you, Miss Celine. I meant protecting workers from bosses or tyrannical governments. Yeah, and the Democrats are doing that too, man. Just being at the protest is better. Let's see here. It's Rocketeer says, what do you think of the discussion currently going? Oh, I already did that one. All right, back over to TikTok comments. Do you think the National Guard will still be in LA for next weekend's protest? I have no idea. I don't do predictions, unfortunately. Unfortunately or unfortunately, I don't know. Let's see here. Lauren, good to see you again as well. If it passes, is there legislation to undo the budget bill once we impeach Trump? I mean, it's the exact same as, once something is signed into law, we would then need another president to undo that law that was just signed in. The only thing that could undo that is if we had I think you need 2/3 in the Senate to override a presidential veto. So if Democrats had both houses of Congress and they could pass legislation to undo the budget bill, Donald Trump would veto it. We would need a certain number of House representatives and senators to undo that veto. And it is possible, but I don't know if it's 2/3 or I forget exactly how many it is. Let's see here. Decod says, will you be there? I will be at the protest on this coming Saturday. Bryce says, ICE can deport anyone that does not have papers, end of stories, and they will go about it how they see fit. That is inaccurate, Bryce. There are still laws and rules around detaining people, deporting people, and ICE is currently deporting people that they have provided zero evidence have done any crimes whatsoever. Most of the people that ICE is detaining and deporting are legal residents who have done nothing wrong, Bryce. Let's see here. Could start investing him with a majority. I'm not sure what you mean by that. Dr. Bob Fanboy, good to see you again. Do you think a ham sandwich would be a better president than Donald Trump? Absolutely. Snuckles says they're doing it inhumanely. That is 100% accurate. Alrighty. Let's see here. Bryce says, didn't Palestine start the whole conflict? No. And I'm also like, I am I am against the who started it argument with regards to Israel-Palestine, just because depending on who you talk to, they can be like, well, if you go back 10 years, if you go back 50 years, if you go back 100 years, if you go back 5,000 years, blah, blah, blah. Let's work on what would create peace in that region today. What would disrupt the most number of innocent human lives? And do that instead of what is currently going on. So yeah, it's not about like who's right and who's wrong. It's both the government of Israel and Hamas are guilty of war crimes, have been acting in bad faith, and so yeah, so it's their fault. It's not the citizens of either of those countries' faults. Judah says thoughts on ICE. They are a rogue agency. They are acting illegally and immorally. And if you want more data and information on that, you should check out Senator Chris Murphy's speech to Kristi Noem about all the different ways in which her agency is acting illegally. Count said, didn't Obama deport 3 million undocumented immigrants? Yes, he did, but there's a difference. So Obama deported people who had just overstayed their welcome and had not set up roots, and also criminals. Donald Trump said he was only going to deport criminals, but he's not. He's just deporting anybody that they fucking feel like. Stephen Miller told ICE to go to Home Depot, go to 7-Eleven, and deport people that have jobs. So people that are paying taxes in this country, who are valuable members of their community, who have done nothing wrong, and legal residents. They're detaining and deporting all of those people. Let's see here. The odd man out says, what crimes are ICE committing? Denying habeas corpus, for example. If they're hiding their faces, they're not identifying themselves. I think that's all pretty not accurate. Snuckles says, the Home Depot by my house was raided and they took them all. There's no one there right now. That's fucking immoral, man. Mike McLaughlin says, you don't have the facts, don't pass misinformation. I'm not, Mike. I don't know what you think I'm saying that's inaccurate. The odd man out says, hiding your face isn't a crime. I'm pretty sure it is if you're law enforcement. Let's see here. Albert Quarquelon says, where does the GOP go post-Trump? That's an interesting question. I'm not really sure. My guess is that one of the Trump kids will probably try to take up the mantle. There will probably be somebody smarter who tries to do what Trump is doing, but not as stupidly as he is doing it. But will that person have the same, charisma and decades of setting themselves up with this, like, just business genius that's all just like a fucking lie? He does seem to be kind of like a singular political force where you can't like redo what Trump accomplished, in the fact that he painted himself as a business genius since the 80s, painted himself as like the world's richest man, had The Apprentice, fucking Twitter exploding, all that shit, fucking help from Russia, blah, blah, blah. Completely Lawless says the real conversation is amnesty. No, I mean, legal status to be here is pretty black and white. No, I mean, the conversation is ICE is acting illegally and, what do you call it? Unlawfully, they are deporting people to concentration camps in El Salvador and South Sudan and Libya with no due process. So we can have 100% have a conversation about the, applying for asylum versus a pathway to citizenship or shit like that. But right now, there's an emergency happening, and it is ICE is kidnapping people and sending them to concentration camps in other countries. Let's see here. Odd Man Out said, dude doesn't even know federal laws, LOL. I mean, if you say so, the odd man out. What state are you in? I'm not going to tell you. Clark Babin says, and now there's a wine festival of lies spreading BS. Don't believe him. What do you think I said that was inaccurate, my man? American Sniper says, where's your proof on that? Where's my proof on what? Let's see here. Joni Caller says, if someone confronts me, I want to see their face. I mean, I agree with that. Completely Lawless says, if someone doesn't have a visa or green card, what should be done with them? I think it depends. Are they trying to become a citizen? Are they a valuable member of their community? Do they have children here who are citizens? I don't think that it is valuable to have a black and white attitude towards this, because there are all different shades. If we were to deport everybody that Donald Trump wants to deport, it would be terrible for this country. We are suffering from a population decline right now. In a growth economy, we're going to need people to work certain jobs and pay into Social Security and shit like that. He is kneecapping us. Trump is kneecapping everybody in this country in one way or another. And these mass deportations are just one example. There are farmers out there whose food is dying on the vine right now because nobody will work their fields. And that is going to increase food costs going forward. So we're all going to be suffering through a cost of living crisis that is made all the worse because of Donald Trump's stupid fucking, immigration policies. Buki Man says, first of all, we're in the situation because the last administration let millions over the border. They did not do that, Bucky Man. The border was not open. There were a lot of illegal border crossings during the Biden administration. That is true. But they were trying to solve that problem. They were trying to do everything they could. They even wrote a bill with Republicans to try to solve the problem. And Trump told them not to vote for the bill that they wrote because he wanted to run on that as an issue. So Republicans, Donald Trump, everybody on the right has exactly zero credibility on this issue as far as I'm concerned. And Democrats, while they might not be perfect on this issue, they are at least trying to solve the problem like serious fucking adults. Bucky Man says, here, 100% wrong. It's almost like you don't know any facts. All right. Gonna be blocking some people. Let's see here. Cool. Yeah, if you're not asking questions, if you're just here to be a jerk, then I'm gonna start blocking you. Let's see here. Okay. Mike McLaughlin says the Democrats are the problem. They're not, Mike. You want to ask a question or do you want to get booted? Kanye says Pride Month. I'm for it. Let's see here. Short says, do you think Trump's second term will probably get centrist and independents to vote Democrat? I mean, that's kind of what happened during his first term, but it really just depends on if people are activated. Like the billionaire class has completely captured online information and, mainstream media as well. So if we really want people to get the word about what is going on and how bad the Republican Party has become and how urgent it is to elect Democrats to be a check against Donald Trump and get as many Republicans out of office as possible, we got to do that work in person, and we got to recruit as many people as we can to do that work in person as well, because just, retweeting and posting and shit like that is not going to get it done when Elon Musk owns Twitter and can push whatever fucking bullshit conspiracy theories he fucking wants. So yeah, I'm not in the business of making predictions about what's going to happen in elections going forward, but I'll just say if we do the work, we win. Equality for all, hell yeah, says, I heard on TikTok Trump wants to import 100K additional white Afrikaners, replacements for brown deportees. Potentially, Badger75 says, what do you think about Rockland, New York? It is becoming interesting to me, is all I will say. And I think that if you are also curious about which vote counting machines were potentially infected with malware, I think you should call your elected representatives, your Secretary of State, etc. Mike McLaughlin says, talk facts and you won't have to boot me. Ask a question. What do you think I'm being inaccurate about, Mike? And yeah, way to fucking victim blame here. It's like, oh, if you didn't do this, then I wouldn't have to do this. Look what you made me do. Bullshit. Completely Lawless says, is Rockland in the courts via lawsuit yet? I believe it is. I'm not 100% sure where it is in the process, but they have gotten to the point of discovery, which is an important step of the process, the legal process. Snuckle says, I'm watching the news right now, and it's just a war zone. I'm not seeing the current situation that's going on in Los Angeles, so I don't know. Wicked Things This Way Come says, do our foreign allies have established rules of how to handle the U.S. in case of our downfall? That I do not know, Wicked, but they absolutely sure, 100%. All right, let's see here. Where are we at? 48 minutes, not bad. How many times do I need to smash that like button to convince Trump to resign? I mean, there is a number of likes that you can send me that will get Trump out of office. So are you patriotic enough to smash that like button, John Krause, whoever you are? Let's see here. Completely Lawless says, do you think it's good Garcia is back or worse than before? Of course it's good. We need to bring all of those people back from all of the concentration camps that the Trump administration sent them to. Because as far as I'm aware, they have provided exactly zero evidence that any of those people are here illegally or have done any crimes. D. Delaney says, nothing is happening in LA right now. I don't know. I haven't seen the news. American Sniper says, you talk a lot of shit and back it up with nothing. I mean, you can Google everything I'm telling you, man. And if you think I'm being inaccurate about anything, let me know. All I'm getting from you and your buddy, Michael, is that I am spreading misinformation, but you haven't said a single fucking thing that I've said that you think is inaccurate. Ortho Curious says, when did women get the right to vote? I don't remember. RC says, thoughts on AI? It needs to be regulated, and the Republican Party is voting to make regulation illegal. So, let's see here. If somebody could just watch the news right now, you know what I'm talking about. It's crazy. Yeah, I don't know. I haven't seen any updates on the situation in Los Angeles. Let's see here. Ortho Curious says, thought you said ask anything about politics. Yeah, you can. I don't know everything, but you can ask me anything. All right, everybody. So yeah, comments have kind of slowed down. So this is the time to ask a question, everybody. If you are somebody on the right who has been, I asked you quite a few questions. You keep passing them up, and yet I keep on seeing the comments that you make saying that I'm not answering your question. This is the time, Mike. Ask it now, man. Comments are light, you know? Unbelievable. You don't think I see this all the fucking time? People claiming that I'm skipping their questions on purpose when they actually didn't ever fucking ask a question, you know? Yeah, this ain't new, man. You're not being clever. Oy. Taylor Tomcax says, can you explain the asylum process? I mean, yeah, I not with enough, authority to be confident that I'm saying things that are currently accurate, because it does switch with administrations and stuff. So I have heard from people who study this very intensely that Trump has done a very good job of shutting down all legal forms of asylum and immigration. So all he has essentially done is increase illegal immigration by giving people no other option. Unless you're rich or white, it is virtually impossible for you to come into America the right way right now. Completely Lawless says, would you like a fun would you rather question? That's up to you, my man. Yeah, Mike McLaughlin, still waiting on that fucking question, man. I don't know how long it's been. How long does it take you to write a question, man? Because I'm not seeing shit here, buddy. Yeah. Could it be that you're completely full of it? Seems like a possibility to me. Would you rather get single bill voting in Congress but have to give the oldest member a pedicure every Sunday? I'm not going to answer that one completely. Alice says, one of Trump's lives told me, believe her, all those people sent to El Salvador are bad criminals. Alice, they're lying to you. That is just fucking straight up lies. The Trump administration, Elon Musk, they are lying to you. They are making shit up. Excuse me. Do you support the Stormcokes or the Imperials? I don't know what that is. Fucking war. Grow46 says, is there any data on how normal Republicans feel about what is going on? It's difficult. Polling is an art rather than a science. Excuse me. And it's difficult to really pin people down. Polling is just sort of like a snapshot of this political moment. So, I can show you polls that say that like we've moved like 1 to 2 percentage points in, people being like unhappy with what Trump is doing, but the majority of people just they're not watching the news. They are not getting up to date information. They are just kind of like absorbing vibes from social media, and that's telling them what's going on in the world. And social media is the Wild West, and it is manipulated by billionaires, and so they are being fed misinformation and propaganda that will convince them to either vote for Republicans or not vote at all. Let's see here. Mike McLaughlin says, what facts do you have to back up your information? You know what, Mike? I'm done with you, buddy. See you later. Okay. User says, the people, they started all of it, and it's all their faults. ICE is just doing what they are paid to do. That is an accurate user. ICE is breaking the law. They are a rogue agency. If you want more information about that, check out Chris Murphy. Gave a speech during a Senate hearing with Kristi Noem, where he outlined all the various ways that ICE is acting unconstitutionally, illegally, and immorally. And as far as like the people in LA starting it, if somebody breaks a window, send that person to jail. But the protest in general is 99% peaceful. Let's see here. Big G says ICE is enforcing the law. They are not. They are acting illegally. And again, just check out Chris Murphy's speech, Big G. And if you want me to send you a link, send me a DM. My DMs are open. You can email me through my websites. I am willing and able to forward all of this relevant information to you. Let's see here. User says the ICE agents are personally all committing crimes. Seems like they are getting ordered to do bad things. Yeah, they are. Chris, what's his fucking Steve Miller told ICE to start just arresting people. You know, regardless of if they have committed any crimes, if they are here legally or illegally, if they are citizens, if they are veterans, if they're Native Americans, they have just been picking people up off the street indiscriminately and shipping people off illegally. So yeah, please, if there's anybody on here who is standing ICE and saying it's all the protesters' fault, please go watch Chris Murphy's speech about all the different ways that ICE is breaking the law and acting unconstitutionally. User says, so it's Chris Murphy, not the ICE agents personally, is what you're saying. I don't think that you are understanding what I'm saying at all. Bird says, why wasn't there an outbreak like this during Obama administration when he sent millions packing? Because there's a difference between deporting criminals and deporting whoever the fuck you want. There's a difference between deporting people who are here illegally and doing crimes and deporting people just because they are brown, and deporting people without any due process. The people that Obama deported had due process. The Obama administration proved that they were here illegally and did crimes. The Trump administration is not doing that. Alrighty, let's see here. Big G says Obama said millions. I already answered that. All right, now you're not asking questions, Big G, so you're out of here. I don't care if you have different political opinions than me, but actually asking questions, be part of the conversation. Let's see here. Completely Lawless says Obama deportees were ones that had very recently crossed the border. That is accurate. Completely Lawless says if Dems had the House, would this be any different? Yes. Yes, it 100% would be. Completely Lawless says ACL had a big lawsuit. 300K Obama deportees did not have due process. Oh, well, I am interested in learning more about that. Completely Lawless. I will give that a Google. But yeah, that is not something that liberals are cool with, or Democrats are cool with, just because Obama did it. If he broke the law and deported those people without due process, then those people should be brought back. Isaac says, do you have any predictions on the result of Newsom versus Trump lawsuits? No predictions. Let's see here. The Odd Man Out says, so someone said I am representing Christians badly, but I haven't got up here and said a single lie. I don't know what you're talking about, The Odd Man Out. 2014 ACLU article on it. Bird says, but no one was rioting. Well, there's a difference, Bird. There's a difference between what was going on then and what's going on now. If ICE is going into neighborhoods and just fucking renditioning people, it's different than what was going on during the Obama administration. Let's see here. The Odd Man Out, you are not asking questions, so you are out of here. Okay. Is Miller's wife getting a discount on a Tesla? I don't know. I think, rumor is she's getting a horse soon. Anybody get that joke? Anybody get that reference? LibCon says, what do you think is the next step of the Republican Party after Trump leaves? I think probably one of the Trump kids will try to take up the mantle. Somebody's going to try to get that valuable resource of the MAGA base that will just vote for you no matter what you do and say. So yeah, I don't know. But it can't happen soon enough, for my opinion. D. Delaney says, what they are showing on the news are recaps from yesterday in LA. Okay. Yeah, I don't know anything about it. Bluebird, I really like you. Thank you for being here. Joni Calder said, did you see Newsom talk about Trump last night? I didn't see the speech. I did see that he put his foot down and was like, come fucking arrest me, man. But yeah, I don't know. Creek says, what's Trump approval rating right now? Probably 39% ish. He never goes above 44, and he never goes below 35 or something. All right, everybody, we're at about an hour. I'm going to start wrapping up. Thank you, everybody, for your questions, for your gifts, for your likes. I appreciate all the support you can give me, whether it's the free kind or the financial kind. You can do whatever you like. I'm not going to bend your arm, but you can if you want. I got a Patreon. I got a store you can buy things from, and you can send gifts and subscribe and all sorts of good shit. If there's any questions that you have that I was not able to get to, my DMs are open. You can also email me from our website. Regular streaming schedule is Monday through Friday, starting around 11:30 a.m. Pacific time. Yeah, and just my heartfelt plea that if you're someone like me and you see what's going on and you want to help, just do the work. I got a Discord with a whole bunch of things that people can do to do the work, and just please do the work with me and recruit other people to do the work with us, because that is the only way that we get out of this. We have to do the work. All right, let's see if there's any last comments here. Let's see here. What's next for Tim Walz? Asked Jamie. Whatever he likes, I guess. Let's see here. Conservative Conquista says, arrest news scum. Doesn't seem like you're here in good faith, so that's a block. Alrighty, let's see here. Heath Miller says, I don't know who to vote for. Democrats up and down the ballot. Kanye says, ain't nobody give a fuck about your patron. All right, well, Heath Miller says, who do I trust? Just not right-wing media. You can check out any media source except for right-wing media. Right-wing media has been proven through regular data crunching to be like 17% accurate. So no right-wing media, no Fox News, no OAN, no Breitbart, no Charlie Kirk, no fucking Ben Shapiro, no Sean Hannity, no Tucker Carlson. And then just everything else, just try to get a nice, variety of, mainstream media, legacy media, independent media, progressive media, foreign media, whatever you like. Ice Wallow Come says left is equally as wrong. No, it's not. Ice, that is inaccurate. Alrighty. Completely Lawless says, have you seen Ground News? I have seen Ground News, and I like Ground News. How are people finding out about the ice raids? That I don't know. Maybe social media? I'm not really sure. All right, everybody. I am fully out of guests, so I have to get out of here. But see you tomorrow. Same bat time, same bat channel. Do the work, be good to yourselves, and have a great week, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye. Goodbye, 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 goodbye. Goodbye.